America barely gets any of its oil from the Middle East. Only 7% of the oil we imported came from Saudi Arabia, and only 4% came from Iraq. While 60% of all the oil we got was from Canada, and 10% is from Mexico, 4% is from Colombia. You guys may think the economy's bad now, but it was so much worse in the 1970s. In 1973, the Middle East had a stranglehold on the entirety of the West. Saudi Arabia did not like the US's stance on Israel, so they embargoed the West from getting oil, making the price jump almost 100% from $4.75 a barrel to $9.35. That didn't just quadruple gas prices or make gas unavailable, it shut down most of the West's manufacturing capacity. Factories couldn't operate, a lot of Americans couldn't heat their homes, so we had to switch back to coal for a while. Things stabilized for a few years until one of the largest exporters of oil in the world, Iran, kicked out the US's puppet, and it more than doubled prices. The price of oil went from $14.95 a barrel to $37.42. That's almost a 150% increase. It took decades, but the US finally began to reduce their dependence on the Middle East around the early 2000s. The technology to extract oil from shale and sands became much cheaper and more efficient, hence Canada coming in. Now we are producing more oil, 13.38 million barrels a day, than any other country ever has, even Saudi Arabia. But we're not just producing more oil than we ever made, we are exporting it. The US went from exporting under $1 billion of oil every month to over 10 billion right now. We are now the world's third largest exporter in 2023, 4.5 million barrels per day. Saudi Arabia still holds the #1 spot in oil exports. They do 11 million barrels per day. But that's because they barely consume it. The US is still the #1 consumer at 19 million barrels per day. That means that the United States is energy independent. We are the most energy independent we've been since the past 70 years. Article written by oil expert Robert Rapier. He recently joined TikTok. He should have 1 million followers. Please help me make that happen. Whoa. If the US has so much oil and we're so energy independent, why do our presidents beg the Saudis sometimes to pump more oil? Because oil doesn't just go to the country that produces it. It gets auctioned off to the highest bidder all over the world. Since the rest of the world relies heavily on Saudi and OPEC oil, if anything happens to their oil fields or there's a production cut, the benchmark prices of oil will increase. It doesn't matter how much oil the United States has, we would still be selling those barrels at world market prices. And that would still lead to more expensive gasoline at the pump. Which is why the US still has a very heavily vested interest in the supply chain of oil. I'm the Geo Husar, and I can't wait to get my garden started. Thanks for watching.